Hello, nerds, dorks, and poors. I'm Uncle Guns. I'm back with a new episode. Today we're going to talk about this Polish Radom VIS 35 from World War II. Post-World War I, Poland found itself rebuilding its manufacturing and most of its infrastructure, its military as well, as most of the European militaries were decimated from World War I and then summarily the Spanish flu that ended World War I. We find that they decided they needed a good sidearm, modernize their military, even though they were still using horses up until World War II. And that's another video about the Flying Hussars and all of that. They definitely needed to upgrade their handgun, so they took time in the 20s to look at a lot of different variations of CZ pistols and 380s and small compact pistols because, again, a handgun or a sidearm was seen as a very, very secondary or a minor thing to have. But you should have one, or everybody should have one. So a lot of 380s were looked at, 32s, things of that nature, and their relationship with FN drove them to look at some Colt style pistols, some 1908s, some 1911s, although they were considered big and awkward for the Polish military. They looked at also the high power, the developing high power at that moment, which was of great interest to them. And FN kept kind of bringing new iterations of the high power to the front of the sales pitch. Unfortunately, during the late 20s, I'm not sure which date, but the VZ 28 deal, which was actually a BAR chambered in 308 that they were preparing to sell to the Polish military, which actually several of them did make it into their hands, were of such low, poor quality from FN that it strained the relationship and then ended up actually breaking the relationship between Radom FB and the Fabrique Nationale Herstal manufacturer. So that relation is broke. They decided, hey, we really like that high power. We think that the high power is the future of pistol design. And they ended up coming up with this bad boy in the 1935 time frame. So first production run, 1935, they start turning out the VIS, which is actually WIS at the very beginning, an homage to the two designers of this pistol, their initials W and S and the I in the middle. So they move this moniker from W to V, as you'll read in most history books, to emphasize the Latin word for vis, which is power, okay? So you can see they've copied some high-power designs in this, the way that the breech lock works. Some of the internal working designs of this gun are an homage to the high power. And obviously its name Power, is, again, another homage to that handgun that they had, desired, but couldn't fulfill because of that strained relationship between FN. So for a few years, until about 1939, we see that Poland makes about 46,000 of these pistols. And in 1939, the invasion of Poland happens from Germany, and the Radom plant is then taken into captivity, and all of these guns then are used in the German military at that point. YouTube doesn't like us using the N-word, so I won't call them N-words like they are spoken about in the history book.
Wait, are you talking about black people?
They don't like... They don't like
We're
you.
not gonna say
We
that.
can't say the N-word?
But when you say N-word, people are gonna think you said the black person's slur word.
They don't want you to say and they don't want you to say the N-word, obviously,
Okay,
but the German N-word.
Okay, alright, whoa.
Cancel it.
Once the German military ceased production of the Radom plant, they decided to take all of the half-done guns and all the parts that they were able to gather together and send them over to Steyr. Steyr then was in charge of assembly and final production of this gun. But all of the parts production did happen at the FB Radom plant in Poland for the remainder of the war. Now, there was a bunch of factory workers that did try to smuggle a bunch of these parts out and summarily were hanged for the treasonous crime at that point. After the debacle with the workers and the treasonous acts that they had committed, a lot of them, like I said, were either deported to concentration camps or they were hung in the streets of Radom. So they finally moved all final production for these guns to Steyr. So Steyr had complete control over the final assembly of these pistols. First see their use in general population use in the German army, but then very quickly they honed down and sent a lot of these to paratroopers so that they could be used in their kit. And they were something that was definitely favored. This is probably one of the better designs, if not the best design during World War II. Probably second to the 1911, but 9mm, 8 rounds, very, very reliable, very, very well made. We'll go and take these down on the bench there and take a look underneath the skin of this gun. So here we are at the bench with the VIS 35. What's cool about some of the features on this, FB, which would be the manufacturer of the pistol, is on the one side in the triangle. And you flip it over and it says VIS. Really, really cool to see that, you know, that actually took them extra time. So they actually wanted to produce this pistol in a way that, you know, something that they could be proud of. You know, great grip serrations there. They have this, you know, tapered, molded, you know, this actually feels like molded when they finished it. It's a great gun. This gun, all numbers match on the beaver tail safety, all that stuff. But this is a late war production, and it is pretty rough on this side of the gun. You can see the chatter from the mill on all these parts. They were definitely in a hurry. The guide rod has a ton of chatter on it, and so does the barrel. So definitely getting to the end of the war with this gun, and there's definitely some panic in the manufacturer, you can see. So bobbed hammer, just like the 1911s had or the high powers had. There's no safety like a high power or a 1911 would have had. It just relies on this beaver tail safety, which is, it's fine. Decocker though, that's the unusual thing. People pick up this pistol, they think it's a 1911. It's not. There's decocker in there. That decocker actually pushes the firing pin out of the way and also hits the sear to drop the hammer at the same time. Let's drop the magazine out. Just a real standard 1911 looking magazine. They were well built. They're good, you know, spot weld magazines. This thing used to have, when it was in first production, it used to have a takedown lever that would help you, assist you in taking this thing apart, where 1911s have this spring and detent that hold against the locking lever there, and also the cam pin. This thing originally had some pins, some nicely machined pins that would go and have gone into the back, captive pins, but they obviously were reducing time and labor, and they just used some roll pins at the end of the war here. And they omitted this back slide latch to help you in the takedown of this gun. There's no barrel bushing like a 1911. It's a pressed bushing. It's actually pressed into the frame here, so that ain't coming out. So taking this apart is more difficult without that latch, but I'll struggle through it here, so, or try to at least. You kind of line it up like you would like a CZ or something to that extent, and you kind of push a little bit out on the gun, and then you kind of have to, there's no great way of doing this, but pull until this little bad boy, come on, falls out. Whew. So now the gun will come completely apart at that point. So as we take it apart, a pretty simple frame, very reminiscent again of the 1911 and the high power. You got kind of a high power type extractor here. And then you got a captive spring, which is really interesting technology for the time, because this really didn't exist until about 20, 30 years later. And these guys probably pioneered a lot of that technology, which is cool. But let me get the spring out of here. Don't mind me again. I'm just on the constant struggle bus. It's my favorite bus. And so we got a telescoping captive spring. Like that's that's like generations of technology that didn't exist, for another 20, 30 years. I mean, we're talking like Glock Gen 3, before all that, there's still pistols now that don't have captive springs. So then, just like normal, you take this barrel out like you would anything. Not out the front like you would a 1911. You can't do that with the 1911, but because of the pressed-in barrel bushing there. But you see, this is very, very similar, very reminiscent of the Browning high power. You got this ramped cam for the tilt barrel to operate. And yeah, it's a beautiful design. It was executed really well. And then here's the decocker in action. You can see it pushes down on the hammer, and then it also pushes up on the firing pin. Can't really see that all that well, but there's two actions that are happening at the same time in that firing pin channel. Where the firing pin is actually moving out of the way, getting pushed up into the slide itself, and then the hammer is being released all at the same time. So it's really kind of an ingenious decocking measure. I guess this came about because the way you decocked it was pull it partially back out of battery, pull the trigger, it would decock, go forward. There were people in different units, probably Hussar units is what is said, that didn't like that. They thought it was overly complicated to decock the gun. I don't know why you need to decock a gun like this, but whatever. It didn't have a manual safety. Okay, I get it, whatever. So somebody just trying to throw their weight around. Assembly, reverse of obviously what we've just encountered with it. And you kind of have to be careful getting these springs back in. They are a little, on these ones that were produced later in the war, tolerances are a little bit lax on those, so kind of have to make sure everything lines up well. Get the slide rails back in, kind of push things together there, and then you're gonna come into the back part of the gun with the extractor, and you can put the hammer down if you would like to help assist that. It's really kind of a pain to get all this stuff going the right direction, but it is possible even without the little gotta take this hammer spring, push down on it just a little bit with this piece of straw, because I'm like super hillbilly here. Hillbilly deluxe. You see that? You ever seen a Polish VIS get put together with a piece of straw? So same thing that has to go on here. See, and that's not it, but you have to get this all jiving correctly. So kind of a pain, especially in these late war guns. Like I said, they weren't really built all that great. So now that everything's kind of shuffled around together, you kind of get it started. Hold your tongue in cheek, finger and thumb, and then you gotta pull out on this freaking thing. Gosh dang, I don't know how anybody would have done this in like a combat zone. You just like lose shit. So it's back together. Good freaking grief, thank you. So Now the gun's back together, and that is a tabletop view of our VIS 35. Yeah, so let's go and take this out to the range. After we saw the breakdown on the bench and all the intricacies of this gun and the fact that it has a decocker, which, you know, this looks like a 1911, it acts like a 1911, it's not a 1911. It's more akin to the high power, and it does have that decocker, so I really wanted you guys to see that. So we load our full magazine into the pistol, hammers back, and then you can decock it, you know, without it firing, obviously. And it is really cool how that channel, you know, drops the firing pin up out, or actually pushes it up out of the way, like I was describing. But it is a single action pistol still, so we will have to pull this hammer back in order to fire it. So we're at 25 yards, which is way further than we need to be, but we're gonna shoot it at 25 yards. You like my red glasses? We're doing that. The thing from the Civil War. Everybody says I have a Doppler ganger from that guy, or whatever. What is that called when you're, is it doppelganger? Yeah. Okay, whatever. So we're gonna shoot at 25 yards. So the trigger is really, for a military pistol, freaking ridiculous. And especially for the fact that this is a late war gun and that it probably wasn't a lot of good attention to detail. They were probably panicked. You know, they were, you know, putting this stuff together as fast as possible. You could just see it on the bench when we were pulling it apart, just how kind of fast they were running the mills. But this gun shot really well. It does pinch a little bit. Again, my hands, since they're clubs, always have a hard time with these older pistols. Guys must have had much smaller hands, but it is a lot nicer to shoot from a lot of other pistols during that era, just for the fact that it has this tapered grip like I was showing you. That tapered grip really does fit the hand very nicely. So let's move up to a more practical distance and shoot this thing for a little bit more accuracy. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on. It could absolutely be my technique with this gun because it was the first time I shot it, or I could just suck. It's one of those two. I'm gonna lean towards the suck. So we've got all 8 rounds right here. I was aiming here, I won't lie to you, but they all ended up right here. So driving or something that I was doing was wrong. So the one flyer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there's 3 here actually. So super accurate. I mean, the gun is on. It's just not, I'm just not shooting it well. So we'll back up to 7 yards here and we'll shoot at 21 feet, more practical distance, and see what this thing can do. So we're at 7 yards. This is what I think is more practical, obviously. We'll shoot this, string of fire, 8 rounds, see where everything ends up. Let's go. All still really, really tight. I mean, we're pulling still low right on that. That's probably just me and the fact that I've never shot this gun before. But I will come back. We'll shoot 7 or 8 more as fast as I can. We'll see where they end up, okay? All right, I'm back. We're gonna burn it down. So after the rapid fire, we're still grouping down here to the right, lower right. Again, little guy, don't worry about that little guy. I always have one of those, I don't know why, but that one's extra. So appreciate you poors watching. Make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, all that crap. We will catch you next time. I'm jazzed up about this. I'm glad that we got to shoot this VIS 35.